Hi, everybody. Welcome back to World History. Who wants to go back to ancient Rome? None of us. None of us would want to go back to ancient Rome based on today's lesson, because today is the fall of Rome. So, what are we talking about? Well, the Roman Empire had a number of really great emperors. The last of the ones that we might call really great was Marcus Aurelius. And Marcus Aurelius was really remarkable. He was a philosopher, he was a deep thinker, he was a wise ruler, all while addicted to heroin, basically. All of it while he was high as a kite. He wrote a 20 something book volume set of philosophy while he was having fun, right? But he was still a very good emperor, surprisingly, especially compared to the ones that came after him. There were real problems inside the Roman Empire, and these guys weren't about to be able to fix them. The Roman economy tanked for a bunch of reasons, including there were several years of bad crop harvests, which meant that the price of food went up, and without a way of paying for food, people started to starve to death. Fewer people were working the land when more people starved to death. So they were over farming the land, which meant that they could get less off of it every single year. The Roman Empire had hit its limit on how far it could really realistically grow. It couldn't keep expanding, but their economy demanded more new money coming in from foreign places. And without it, it retracted, it contracted instead of expanded. So that was a problem. There were raids on their grain fleets and on the caravans of grain and other foods. The enemies on the edge of the empire were able to pick off some of Rome's food supply. The emperors needed to raise taxes in order to try to handle all this. There was less public trust in the money that was circulating. And also, there was inflation. The government started to make extra money to handle all these problems, but with too much money in the marketplace, it actually makes the value of every single piece of money or money that you've saved up in the bank less valuable. So, for example, if right now the US government prints $1 million extra a day to keep the economy going and circulating, and all of a sudden the government decides that it's going to print $100 million a day, what does that do to the value of every single dollar that's out there? It makes it less valuable. So if I've saved up my entire life and I've saved $1 million to retire with, but all of a sudden there's just so much money floating around that never was before, my $1 million that I saved for my whole life is now worth a lot less than $1 million used to be worth. You've heard about grown-ups saying stuff like, oh, well, when I was a kid, we could get a piece of candy for a nickel, or I could get a piece of candy for a quarter. Well, now that same thing is like $1.50, $2, a candy bar, that kind of thing. So, yeah, inflation. And that happened to Rome, and it happened at a really bad time. So the economy is swirling around, there's problems. Roman soldiers stopped being patriotic. Roman citizens stopped joining the army in order to defend their homeland. And so in order to have an army to defend it, the Roman government needed to hire professional soldiers called mercenaries. And these guys are not as willing to die. They want to stay alive until the end of the week to get their paycheck, and then the end of the next week to get their paycheck. They're not willing to lay down their life for a family that's 5 miles down the road living in the city. because they don't have a family 5 miles down the road living in a city. They're in it just for the paycheck. So they may be more skilled soldiers, but they are less willing to die for their cause. So there are some military issues in Rome. Also, in order to try to stop what was going on, there was an emperor named Diocletian. And Diocletian was a really smart guy, and he tried a bunch of really good ways to try to stop the rot in the Roman Empire. So these are some things that Diocletian decided to do. He said it's too hard for one man to be emperor of the whole empire. So we'll split it in half. There's an eastern half and a western half. So from the top of Italy, where Venice is in northeast Italy, everything east of that is going to be the Eastern Roman Empire, and it will have a different emperor. All of Italy and all of southern Gaul, France, and North Africa from Italy going westward was going to be the Western Roman Empire. Each empire would have a different ruler, an emperor, and it would have a vice emperor as well. So instead of one person running the entire thing, there would be 4 people running the empire, 2 in the east, 2 in the west. He also doubled the size of the Roman army. And he put a cap on how much you could charge for products in the marketplace so that inflation would start to go down. Because remember how I said if I saved up $1 million isn't worth that much anymore if there's suddenly that much more money in the economy that we weren't expecting? Well, prices go up when there's more money in the economy that you're not expecting. If we keep the prices low, then some of that extra money will just kind of filter itself out and things will get back to normal. You can fight inflation that way. However, within 30 years, Diocletian's plan to make the empire easier to run, doubling the size of the military, cutting it in half with an emperor and a vice emperor in each half, and caps on prices in the marketplace, it was undone because in the eastern half of the empire, there was an emperor who had his vice emperor assassinated. He thought that he wasn't going to be loyal to him, so he had the vice emperor assassinated. And the son of that vice emperor wanted revenge. His name was Constantine. So he rose up and defeated and killed the Eastern Emperor and claimed control of the whole Eastern Empire. And then he said, I don't like us having 2 Roman empires. Let's unite the whole thing. And so he undid Diocletian's splitting it in half to make it easier to run. He conquered the other half of the Roman Empire, and he became Christian while doing it. You may remember that from chapter 6, section 3. Constantine is the first Roman emperor to become Christian. So, he moved the capital of the entire empire from Rome, which was in the west, to Constantinople in the east, naming it for himself, Constantine, Constantinople. Yeah, humble. A group of bloodthirsty savages came from the east. They came from the area that we would call like the Ukraine and southern Russia. They were the Huns. The Huns invaded the Eastern Roman Empire and weakened the whole thing. In the year 410, they even conquered Rome itself. So the city of Rome falls in 410 to the Huns. And the leader was named Attila. The leader of the Huns was Attila the Hun. You might have heard of him. The Western Roman Empire struggled on for a short while after that, but their last emperor was a kid named Romulus Augustus, younger than you when he was Roman emperor. He died after being kicked out of office in the year 476 AD or CE, Common Era. AD equals not after death. Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. Thank you. Good. Okay. The Roman Empire in the east kept going. Again, the capital city in the east was Constantinople, and it did rather well for an extra 1,000 years. It only collapsed in around 1475, after it was invaded by the Ottoman Turks and conquered by them. So, that's how the Roman Empire falls. The next time we get together, we're going to take a look at how the Roman Empire influenced future civilizations. Really, really important, amazing stuff. What did we inherit from ancient Rome? So we'll get to that later. Thanks.